He walked free. The man who knows exactly where two teenage girls are buried right now, today, in 2025, is not in prison. He is not being questioned. He is not under surveillance. He is not being followed. He woke up this morning in a free country, ate breakfast, and went about his day like any other man walking this earth. He walked free, and somewhere out there, in a mine shaft, in an abandoned cellar, in a pit buried somewhere across rural Oklahoma, two teenage girls who just wanted to celebrate a birthday are still waiting to be brought home. This is not a cold case that investigators gave up on. This is not a mystery where the evidence ran dry. The man responsible is known. He confessed. He took a deal. He served 38 months. 38 months for being present at a double murder and the kidnapping and killing of two 16-year-old girls. And then he walked out of prison and said nothing about where those girls are. Their names were Ashley Freeman and Lauria Bible. And I promise you, by the time this video ends, you will understand exactly why this is the most infuriating unsolved case in American true crime history. Not the most mysterious, not the most complicated, the most infuriating. Because unlike most cold cases, we know who did this. We know what happened. We know where those girls were taken. We just cannot find them. And the one man who can lead investigators to them has chosen silence over justice every single day since he walked out of that prison in 2023. Stay with me, because this story goes exactly where you think it goes, and it is worse than you imagine. December 29th, 1999, Welch, Oklahoma, a tiny rural town of less than 600 people sitting in the northeastern corner of the state where everybody knows everybody, where doors do not always get locked at night, and where the kind of violence that was about to happen simply does not happen. Not here. Not to families like this one. Ashley Freeman was turning 16 that day. Her best friend Lauria Bible had come over to spend the night and celebrate. They had spent the afternoon at a local pizzeria with Ashley's mother, Kathy. 3 people sharing a meal on a birthday, completely unaware it would be the last normal moment any of them would ever have. Ashley's parents, Danny and Kathy Freeman, were ordinary people living a simple life in a mobile home along a rural dirt road in Craig County. Danny was known around town. He was not without his complications. There had been serious friction with local law enforcement. His son had been shot and killed by a police officer, and Danny was in the process of pursuing a wrongful death lawsuit against the department. In a small town where law enforcement and community are tightly wound together, that kind of conflict leaves marks. But on the night of December 29th, none of that mattered. What mattered was that his daughter was turning 16, and her best friend was sleeping over. Before Lauria left her own house that evening, she stopped at the door. She turned back to her father, Jay, and she told him she loved him. Those were the last words Jay, Bible, ever heard his daughters say. Nobody in that house, not Lauria, not Ashley, not Danny, not Kathy, had any idea what 3 men had already decided was going to happen that night. The debt had been called in. The plan was already in motion. And in the darkness of rural Craig County, Oklahoma, there was nobody coming to help. To understand what happened in Welch, Oklahoma on the night of December 29th, 1999, you need to understand what kind of place Welch was. Because the geography of this case matters. It matters more than most people who cover this story acknowledge. Craig County sits in the far northeastern corner of Oklahoma, tucked against the Kansas border. The landscape is flat, sparse, rural in the way that means truly isolated. Not scenic rural, not charming rural, but the kind of rural where the nearest hospital is 40 minutes away and where a house fire visible from the road at 5 in the morning might go unreported for several minutes simply because there's almost nobody driving that road at that hour. The Freeman mobile home sat back off a dirt road, not on a main street, not in a neighborhood with neighbors close enough to hear a confrontation. Back off a rural dirt road in the dark, in December, in a part of Oklahoma where the nearest streetlight was miles away. 3 men with a shotgun, a plan, and no witnesses. This was not a spontaneous act of violence. This was deliberate. This was chosen. And the location was part of why they believed they would never be caught. For 19 years, they were right. December 30th, 5:28 in the morning. A passing motorist on a rural dirt road sees something that stops them cold. The Freeman mobile home, the one sitting back off the road where a 16-year-old girl had celebrated her birthday just hours before, is completely engulfed in flames. The fire is massive, visible from a distance. The kind of fire that tells you immediately that whatever is inside is already gone. They call 911. Firefighters arrive. By the time they get the blaze under control and begin moving through the wreckage, they find Kathy Freeman on the floor of her bedroom. She has been shot in the head. Law enforcement begins searching the rest of the rubble immediately. They find no sign of Danny Freeman. They find no sign of Ashley. They find no sign of Lauria Bible. Their working theory at that moment is that Danny snapped, that he killed his wife and fled with the girls. It was the wrong theory, but it was the one that would define the first phase of this investigation and cost precious hours of response time. The following day, December 31st, Lauria's parents, Jay and Lauria Bible, cannot wait any longer. They drive to the crime scene themselves. They walk the same rubble that law enforcement has already cleared. Lauria Bible is not a detective. She's a mother looking for her daughter, and she finds something, a shape under the debris, something that does not fit. She calls the police back. They return, and what they pull from that wreckage is the burned, barely recognizable body of Danny Freeman. Shot in the head, execution style, just like his wife. Both parents, shot in the back of the head. House burned to the ground around their bodies to destroy the evidence. And those two girls, Ashley Freeman and Lauria Bible, were nowhere to be found. Three men, Warren Phil Welch, David Pennington, Ronnie Dean Busick. These were not strangers passing through. They were local. They were known in that community the way certain men in small rural towns are known. Quietly, carefully, with the kind of distance that people keep when they understand without being told that someone is dangerous. The three of them cooked methamphetamine together. They operated in the margins of that community. And the Freeman family, investigators would eventually determine, had crossed them. The motive was a drug debt, money owed. And in the world these three men operated in, that debt had one consequence. Phil Welch arrived at the Freeman mobile home that December night, carrying a loaded shotgun concealed under his trench coat. According to the account Busick would eventually give investigators, Danny Freeman heard something. He went for his own weapon, a loaded .357 Magnum revolver. He was trying to protect his family. He did not get the chance. Welch shot Danny Freeman. He shot Kathy Freeman, both in the head. Busick and Pennington moved through the house and looted it, taking cash and drugs. Then they set the mobile home on fire and prepared to leave. But here is the detail that changes the entire nature of this case. The girls were not inside when that fire started. Ashley and Lauria had heard something in those early morning hours. Whether it was the gunshots, the voices, or simply the primal alarm that something was catastrophically wrong, they got out. They slipped out of the back of the mobile home and ran into the open field behind the house. December, rural Oklahoma, middle of the night. They ran into the darkness and they lay flat on the ground in that open field, trying to hide, trying to stay invisible, trying to survive. And for a moment, it almost worked. Then the mobile home caught fire, and those flames lit up the December sky. And in that sudden violent light, two teenage girls lying flat in an open field became visible. Pennington and Welch saw them. They grabbed Ashley and Lauria, forced them into the cab of Pennington's truck, and drove away into the dark down that rural dirt road. Those two girls, who had done absolutely nothing wrong, who had simply been at a birthday sleepover, were never seen alive by their families again. Investigators would eventually learn the girls were taken to Pitcher, a small Oklahoma mining town that had been almost entirely abandoned after decades of lead contamination from the local mines had poisoned the soil, the water, and the people who lived there. Empty streets, vacant buildings, the kind of place where three men could do whatever they wanted with no one around to hear anything. The community of Welch is small, 600 people. In a town that size, information moves differently than it does in a city. Secrets are harder to keep, and simultaneously in certain circles, They're kept with a ferocity that outsiders find incomprehensible. The men at the center of this case, Welch, Pennington, and Busick, were embedded in a specific social network in that community. A network built around methamphetamine, around shared criminal history, around a mutual understanding that what happens in their world stays in their world. The 12 people who knew what happened to the Freeman family, and those 2 girls were not strangers who overheard a conversation. They were people connected directly or indirectly to the 3 men responsible. And in that world, talking to law enforcement is not just discouraged. It is considered a death sentence. So they stayed quiet. For a year, for 5 years, for 10 years, for 19 years. Meanwhile, Lauria and Jay Bible spent those 19 years calling investigators, attending community events to keep Lauria's name alive, creating a Facebook page, posting on forums, driving to the area themselves on searches, doing the work that should have been made unnecessary by a community willing to speak. The Bibles did not get those 19 years back. Nobody gave them back. And the 12 people who could have shortened that wait by nearly 2 decades continue to live their lives in the same small town while 2 sets of parents grew older without knowing where their children were buried. What happened to Ashley Freeman and Lauria Bible in that trailer and picture over the following days is documented in court records and witness statements. I will not describe it in detail here. I will only say this: they were held. And what was done to them during that time is the reason that every person who learns about this case carries it with them long after they first hear it. It does not leave you, because it was not quick, and it was not merciful. Now here's the part that will make your blood run cold. 12 people, not 1 person sitting on information about what happened. Not 2, 12 separate individuals, neighbors, friends, the romantic partners of the men involved, all had information about the murders, the kidnapping, and what happened to those girls in picture. And for nearly 20 years, not one of them walked into a police station. One woman identified in court documents only as TW lived with Phil Welch in the months immediately following the murders. She told investigators that she heard the 3 men talking openly, casually, about what they had done, about the family they killed, about the debt, about the girls. But that was not the worst of what she found. Phil Welch kept a briefcase. Inside that briefcase were Polaroid photographs. Photographs of Ashley Freeman and Lauria Bible bound with duct tape and gagged, lying on a bed. In some of those photographs, Phil Welch himself was visible lying next to the girls. TW saw those photographs. She knew what they meant. She knew what had happened to those girls. She said nothing. A man identified as RH told investigators that Busick personally described to him what happened, in detail, where the girls were taken, what was done to them, how it ended. He said nothing. A man identified as Jar walked into a room and found Pennington, Welch, Busick, and a 4th unnamed man sitting around looking at those Polaroid photographs together. He said nothing. 12 people, nearly 2 decades. 2 families who spent every single day of those 20 years not knowing where their daughters were, while 12 people in that community carried the answer and chose silence. Those Polaroid photographs have never been found. Phil Welch died in 2005. David Pennington died before justice could reach him. That left one man, Ronnie Dean Busick. In April 2018, 19 years after the murders, Busick was finally arrested and charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder, 2 counts of kidnapping, and 1 count of arson. For a brief moment, the Bible family and what remained of the Freeman family felt something they had not felt in nearly 2 decades, something that resembled hope. The legal proceedings around the Freeman Bible case are, in their own way, as disturbing as the crime itself. Not because the law failed through incompetence, but because the system worked exactly as designed, and the result was catastrophic for the families it was supposed to serve. By the time of his arrest, the Craig County Sheriff's Office and the Oklahoma Bureau of Investigation had spent years building the case. The affidavits were detailed. The witness statements were documented. The evidence, while circumstantial in places, pointed clearly and specifically at Busick, Welch, and Pennington as the men responsible for the deaths of Danny Freeman, Kathy Freeman, Ashley Freeman, and Lauria Bible. The families were told a deal was being offered. Busick would plead guilty to a lesser charge in exchange for information about where the girls were. The families were told this was the best path forward. That cooperation from Busick was the most realistic route to finally finding Ashley and Lauria and bringing them home. What the families were not told, what nobody explicitly explained to Lauria Bible before she agreed, was that accessory to murder in Oklahoma does not carry the mandatory 85% service requirement that first-degree murder carries. That distinction, invisible in the paperwork to a grieving mother, meant the difference between Busick serving the majority of a 10-year sentence and Busick walking out of prison in 38 months. Lauria Bible found out the hard way. Busick has since maintained, repeatedly, that he does not know where the girls are buried, that he was not present for that part of what happened, that Welch and Pennington handled it without him. Multiple witness statements directly contradict that claim, that Hope did not survive what came next. In 2020, Busick took a deal. Instead of facing 4 counts of first-degree murder, he pleaded guilty to accessory to murder, a significantly lesser charge. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison. And here's the detail that the Bible family was never told before they agreed to that deal. Accessory to murder in Oklahoma is not an 85% crime, meaning Busick would not be required to serve 85% of his sentence before becoming eligible for release. Lauria Bible has said publicly and on record, had she known that, she never would have agreed to the deal. Never. Not for a single second. Ronnie Dean Busick served 38 months. In May 2023, he walked out of prison a free man. The man who confessed to being present while 2 parents were shot execution style in front of their sleeping children. The man who multiple witnesses say described in detail what happened to those girls. The man who, according to his own account, watched as Ashley Freeman and Lauria Bible were forced into that truck and driven away into the night. Free. Investigators have searched over 400 mine shafts across the abandoned wasteland of Pitcher, Oklahoma. They have searched ponds, lakes, root cellars, abandoned wells, and properties connected to each of the 3 men. In 2021, they received a specific tip about a property once owned by Phil Welch. His daughter-in-law told investigators he had explicitly warned her never to go near a particular cellar on the property. They searched it. They found nothing. After his plea deal, Busick told investigators to search an old root cellar in Pitcher. An extensive search followed. They found nothing. Lauria Bible has spent 25 years searching for her daughter. 25 years of tips that evaporate, of searches that end in silence, of waking up every single morning without knowing where Lauria is or whether she will ever be brought home. In 2025, Oklahoma Representative Steve Bayshore refiled the Lauria and Ashley bill for the 2nd consecutive year in the state legislature. A piece of legislation that would require anyone convicted of accessory to murder to serve 85% of their sentence before being eligible for parole consideration. A law built specifically out of what happened to these 2 families. A law that, had it existed in 2020, would mean Ronnie Dean Busick was still behind bars right now. Today, as you watch this video, it has not yet passed. Ashley Freeman would be 41 years old today. Lauria Bible would be 41 years old today. They never got past 16. The man who knows where they were woke up this morning as a free man. He ate breakfast. He moved through his day. And somewhere in the ground in rural Oklahoma, 2 teenage girls who just wanted to celebrate a birthday are still there, still waiting, still unfound. Ronnie Busick knows where they are. He is choosing silence over those 2 girls every single day. The search for Ashley Freeman and Lauria Bible did not end when Busick was released. If anything, the outrage generated by his early release renewed public attention on the case in a way that years of quiet searching had not. Community members, cold case advocates, and investigative journalists have continued to push for new searches. The Craig County Sheriff's Office has stated publicly that it believes the girls can still be found, that somewhere in the landscape of abandoned mines and rural properties connected to the 3 men, Ashley and Lauria, are waiting. The mine shafts of Pitcher are a particular focus. The area around Pitcher was once one of the most productive lead and zinc mining regions in the United States. Decades of excavation left behind hundreds of abandoned shafts, some mapped, some not, descending into the earth at various depths across a landscape that has been slowly reclaimed by grass and brush since the town was evacuated. Searching them systematically is an enormous undertaking requiring specialized equipment, funding, and coordination. Investigators have kept at it anyway, expanding the search again and again. And through all of it, nothing, the Lauria and Ashley Bill, if passed, would not bring the girls home. But it would mean that the next Ronnie Busick, the next person who pleads guilty to accessory to a murder involving missing victims whose location he knows, would not walk free after 38 months. It would mean that cooperation with investigators about victim locations would be the price of any early release. It would mean that what happened to the Bible and Freeman families could not happen again in exactly the same way. It is a small thing, a legislative correction to a loophole that destroyed two families. And as of 2025, it is still not passed. Ashley Freeman, Lauria Bible, 16 years old, December 29th, 1999, still not home. So I want to ask you something directly. A man admits to being present at a double murder and the kidnapping of two teenage girls. He serves 38 months. He walks free, and the bodies of those girls have never been found. Is that justice? Because I want to know what you think. Drop it in the comments below, because this case deserves to be talked about, argued about, and remembered until someone finally brings Ashley Freeman and Lauria Bible home. If this video made you feel something, hit subscribe, because this is what Behind the Case does. We do not look away from the cases that make us uncomfortable. We go deeper. We stay longer. We do not stop at the official answer. The next case is already being researched. And trust me, it is worse than this one.